Clara had everything she could ever ask for: wealth, a successful career, and a luxurious lifestyle. She lived in a sprawling mansion on the edge of the city, surrounded by the finest things money could buy. Her days were filled with meetings, events, and shopping sprees, all while her personal assistant kept her schedule organized. Yet, despite her material success, there was a deep emptiness inside her, a loneliness that even the most expensive things couldn't fill. She'd grown up with everything she ever needed, but her upbringing had been devoid of genuine connection. Her parents had focused solely on their business empire, never on emotional support or family bonds. As an adult, Clara had made her way through life with a similar attitude, focusing on appearances and achievements and keeping people at a distance. One afternoon, Clara's assistant, Rachel, mentioned something that caught her off guard. "You know, Clara, I was thinking, maybe you could adopt a dog or a cat. It might help with the loneliness. Pets are known to provide companionship." Clara wrinkled her nose. "A pet? What would I do with a pet? I don't have the time for it. I'm far too busy for something so needy. It would just be another responsibility. I'd prefer not to deal with that." Rachel nodded but didn't push the issue. "Okay, just a suggestion. You might want to consider it. It could make a difference." But Clara wasn't interested. She was always too focused on her next business deal, her next big event. A pet, in her mind, was an unnecessary complication. Besides, Clara was always surrounded by people, even if they weren't close. She didn't need an animal to keep her company. Weeks went by, and Clara's life continued in its predictable, luxurious rhythm. However, one fateful evening, everything changed. It started as an ordinary night. Clara had just returned from an evening gala, feeling exhausted after a long day. Her head ached, and her body was tense. She decided to relax in her enormous master bedroom, letting her assistant know that she'd be in for the night. As Clara settled into her bed, the lights suddenly flickered, and the house was plunged into darkness. The electricity had gone out. "Not again," she muttered under her breath. This wasn't the first time the power had failed in her neighborhood, but the timing couldn't have been worse. She fumbled for her phone to check the time, and, as she did, she felt a wave of dizziness sweep over her. Her vision blurred for a moment, and she quickly sat up, thinking it was just the exhaustion from the event. But then the dizziness grew stronger. Her head spun uncontrollably, and she felt like she was going to faint. Panic began to rise within her. She tried to call for help, but her phone was dead. The isolation of her mansion suddenly felt suffocating. She needed help, but there was no one around to assist her. Her body felt weak, and she realized something was terribly wrong. Clara's heart began to race. She stumbled toward the door, but as she did, her knees gave out, and she collapsed onto the floor. She tried to call out for Rachel, but her voice was too weak. Clara was alone, and the frightening reality set in. She was slipping, and if she didn't act fast, she might not make it. But then, from the darkness, there was a sound, a soft scratching at her bedroom door. Clara's vision was too blurry to make out what it was, but she weakly reached for the door handle and opened it. A small, scruffy dog stepped into the room, its brown fur tangled and matted. It looked up at Clara with bright, concerned eyes, and in that moment, Clara didn't know what to think. She'd never had pets, and she had never seen this dog before, but something about it seemed to know exactly what to do. The dog immediately ran to her side and nudged her hand, then gently climbed onto the bed next to her. Clara weakly stroked the dog's head, feeling a strange comfort in its presence. She didn't know what was happening, but she felt a spark of hope. The dog stayed by her side, never leaving her. Clara's breathing became more labored, but with the dog beside her, she felt a strange connection, a reminder that there was more to life than material wealth and solitude. The dog barked sharply, as if urging her to move. It then jumped down from the bed and ran toward the hallway, turning back to look at Clara. Clara, with every ounce of strength left in her, managed to stand up and follow the dog. She stumbled out of her bedroom and into the hallway, but she was growing weaker by the second. The dog led her to the staircase where Rachel was just returning with a flashlight, searching for her. "What's going on? I heard barking," Rachel called out as she saw Clara stumbling down the stairs. "Are you okay?" I I think I'm going to pass out," Clara gasped. I I don't know what's happening." Rachel rushed forward to catch her, but before she could, the dog barked again and ran ahead, leading them both toward the front door. It was as though the dog knew exactly where to go. "Come on, Clara," Rachel urged, helping her walk out the door. "The paramedics are on their way. We're going to be okay." Later that night, after Clara had been rushed to the hospital and stabilized, the doctors confirmed that she had suffered from an acute medical emergency, a heart arrhythmia, that could have been fatal if not treated in time. Clara was shocked and grateful. She realized that she had been minutes away from disaster, but the dog had been there to save her. The next morning, Clara returned home, still shaken but alive. She couldn't stop thinking about the dog. Where had it come from? Why had it appeared at the perfect moment? A few days later, Rachel brought the dog back to Clara, having learned from the neighbors that it had been abandoned in the neighborhood. Clara, for the first time in her life, realized that maybe she had been wrong. Perhaps love and companionship were not just things you could buy, but feelings that could be given freely. "Meet your new best friend," Rachel said, smiling as she handed Clara the dog. Clara looked at the small, scruffy dog, her heart softening. "I don't know what to say." The dog licked her hand, and Clara felt something stir inside her, something she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just gratitude. It was the realization that the emptiness she had been living with for so long could finally be filled. This story highlights the importance of connection, compassion, and the unexpected ways that help can come into our lives. Clara's initial refusal to adopt a pet symbolizes how we often shut ourselves off from experiences that could bring us joy and fulfillment. The dog's presence at the right moment shows that sometimes the things we resist the most are the things we need most. It's a reminder that life's most valuable gifts can come when we least expect them.